Hey, welcome to the Black Knight Nation podcast. The Black Knight Nation podcast is sponsored by Higher Echelon. Higher Echelon is a company run by Joe Ross, former Army fullback, former Army officer, former Army assistant coach, Black Knight Nation guest. Joe Ross and Higher Echelon have been a great supporter of this podcast, and we really appreciate them. This is the recap of the Army's 31-14 loss to Georgia State at Michie Stadium today. Very disappointing outing for the Black Knights. And we have as our panel today my co-host Steve Anderson. We have Brendan in Jersey. We have Black Knight Nation writer Seth Mendelson. And we're going to we're going to add Steve Kripke from Crawdad's Countdown to Kickoff. So we got quite a crew here to recap this game. And, there's a lot to talk about, guys. And, before I really get on the offense and what went on with the offense today, I'm just going to go around the horn here and get your initial thoughts on this game because, this is a game I thought that Army should win by double digits coming in. I was surprised the line was only 8.5 in Army's favor. I know that Georgia State played South Carolina, North Carolina, Coastal Carolina. I know they lost to Charlotte at home by 1 point. I just thought that if we were going to see this Army team, I thought that this was an important part of their season. Get to 500 before the Wake Forest game, win at home, and it just didn't happen today. So, Steve Anderson, we'll get your take on the game first. I know we were texting earlier. Hey, you weren't texting me toward the end of the game, Steve. You were texting me at the beginning of the game, but you weren't texting me toward the end of the game, man.
Yeah, first and foremost, I 100% agree with you, Sal. We as an organization, as a program, people fear coming into Michie Stadium. Coach Monken's probably lost 5 or 6 games in his entire career at Michie. I don't know what the stat is, but it's an impressive a record. And so it was very, very. We were texting about it. I had texted. Maybe a little hangover on the bye week. Of course, Sal comes right back with you should be itching to play after a bye week, So, and you're absolutely right. And I think, I had so many people text me. I wish I was in that locker room at halftime with whatever Coach Monken had said or did or whatever happened. We just don't know. So, but definitely disappointed to see us lose. I stopped texting Sal because, when after halftime, I was like, all right, I'm going straight. I'm not doing anything else. I'm just going to watch the game and it'll be good. And then I had to move spots right towards the end. And then all of a sudden everything went to crap. And I was like, no.
It went south in a hurry, right? It went south in a hurry.
Yeah, it happened fast. I think, I think there's the biggest thing is we came out flat. I did not see people flying around the ball, or it did not seem like we were, obviously executing to the caliber that we're used to. I think the one play, Sal's the offensive guy, I'm the defensive guy. I think the one play that really stuck out to me was the QB dropped back and then he scored a touchdown, just ran right past Andre Carter. Yeah. I just thought that was so not what, I don't know if Carter's eyes were somewhere else or he had a different read, but it just seemed like he just blew right past him. And, I just felt like that was a play we easily could have made. I don't know if it was third down, but it was definitely a play that,
I think it was.
So that was just one play that I really said. And then I of course, I had to text Sal after the slot back counter that went for a -1. I was like, oh, that's just not a good play. And Sal humored me. So, but yeah, I think overall, disappointing loss. I thought the guys played well in the second half, good enough to win up until the last 4 minutes. And you play a team like that, you keep them around, and then they just execute at a better. But disappointing.
Yeah. Real quick, right before I went on Steve's radio show this week, right? Crawdad's Countdown to Kickoff, or last week, Steve. I think it was last week, and somebody asked me, well, what scares you the most about Georgia State, right? And you know what scared me the most about Georgia State? Their coach. He motivated an 0-4 team to go into Army and outplay Army. Oh, outplay is not even a strong enough word, right? In the first half, he motivated his team enough, and they're all banged up. One of their starting linebackers out for the season. Everybody has injuries, right, guys? And they are kicking the tail there in the first half. So that was the whole slap back thing I'll get into later. But let's go to Brendan and his take on the game now.
So I joked before we went live that I slept past my alarms this morning and missed the first quarter, and apparently the Army team did too. It's just the thing that's so painful about a game like this is that as bad as it got, it was still so winnable.
Yeah.
And it's like whatever if like the team comes out flat or whatever happens in the first half, the coaches challenge them at halftime. They rise to the challenge in the third quarter, and then I really felt like the coaches kind of let them down in the fourth quarter because it really to me the game really come down to fourth and less than a yard at the goal line. I really felt like you just needed to calm down there, maybe take a timeout if you need to, because everybody knew that the fullback was going to get the ball, and I understand it's their bread and butter. It's not that far to go, but everybody on the defense knew that he was getting the ball too. And it was like just the alignment they were in. It's like, I don't care like how confident you are in your offense. That's just not a look that you want to run against. And so I felt like they really needed to call a timeout there, and regroup and really think about what they wanted to do, because it was an important moment in the game. And Monken is usually very savvy with things like that. Like if you go back to the Armed Forces Bowl in 2017 against San Diego State, he calls a timeout with like 5 minutes left in the game.
Yeah,
because he just knows the pace of the game and where he can anticipate where it's going to go, and ultimately that bought them enough time to score at the end of the game. So
yeah, Brandon, one thing I just want to ask, and this can be for the group or just for you, but do you think Tyler was in the game at that point, wasn't he?
No, he was out.
No, it was. Do you think Cade was confident enough to look at that defense and call timeout because he felt like maybe this isn't the right play, or do you feel like, this is the play call, we're going to run this no matter what the look is?
Oh man, I don't know, but I also have in my mind, I just, if I may plug a couple previous episodes of the show, I was just yesterday I went back and listened to the conversations you had with
Nate Sassaman.
Nate Sassaman, yeah. And now he was just like, yeah, there was no audibles. So I honestly don't know.
You know what, Brendan, real quick on that, right? So on that fourth down play, you run Jacoby Buchanan, right? And he's trying to keep his legs moving. Right? And Ballard's trying to push him into the end zone, right? That should have been reversed on third down. That should have been Cade under center, quarterback sneak, Jacoby pushing Cade. That's what it should have been. But instead, like, Cade's trying his hardest to shove Buchanan into the end zone, but Georgia State put up a good enough wall. So
Sal, that is a play that is just, I don't know if it's not drawn up that way. I mean, maybe they just call it a QB sneak and they know to do that, but that is a very successful thing I see all over college and NFL, right? You just sometimes I've seen in the NFL, who was it? I think it was the Texans. They put a defensive tackle at fullback and just said, just push. It was probably their strongest guy, right? Just push that guy 6 inches. He's not going to make it on his own. That's why you're back here. Just do that.
Once the push was made legal, it completely changed goal line offense.
Guys, I like to throw my 2 cents in there on that. We got to talk also about the offensive line. There was absolutely no hole there for Buchanan to get through, and that's on the offensive line. They got to create a hole, that gets him 6 inches. and they didn't. They didn't do it in the play before with Ballard running the ball.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a hole as much as it's a push, right?
Yeah.
Whatever
right.
it is,
I mean,
you got to have that open. The NFL, these guys open up a little bit of a hole there. He should have made it. Let's be honest. He should have made it, but he didn't, and he didn't make it because they knew what was coming, and I put that on the coach. And but the players, the offensive line, didn't give him anything, and that happens.
I feel like we can say they knew what they were coming, but Buchanan's got quite the record of getting 6 inches in his career. I think it's been 1 or 2 times ever he hasn't got it. So I just feel like the analytics are on the Buchanan fullback dive there.
Yeah.
So they are, and
90% or whatever.
Yeah, and I just feel like I know we can sit here. If Buchanan gets in there, nobody's talking about this, and of course he didn't. And we want to say it's a different play, but I just really feel like most of these coaches go by analytics. And if you have if you have one play that you have a 92% chance of getting 6 inches on, what play are you calling? What play are you calling?
That's what Monken said to us at the press conference.
What play are you calling?
You know what I'm calling? Nah, I'm just kidding. You know what? If Tyre
slot back counter, that's what Sal's calling right there.
No, if Tyre's in the game, right? I'm calling that off tackle run that he scored the second touchdown on because everybody's thinking fullback dive, right? But Tyre's not in the game; he's on the sidelines, so. I guess you go with the fullback dive. Steve Kripke, let's get to you real
as I'm listening to all this and sort of confirming some of the things that I'm thinking of. To me, there's a want it factor. Who wants it? And I just felt like consistently, on a majority of the plays, there was just a sense that Georgia State wanted it worse. I mean, they 0-4, didn't want the thought of going 0-5, supposedly Monken gave him a talking to. I mean, I think one of the sideline reporters said that, hey, if you don't want it, turn in your pads right now kind of talk at halftime. Yeah, and it seemed like they came out at halftime, scored, on the first 2 possessions, and boom. And then suddenly turned it over on downs, interception, turned it over on downs. Who wants it? And it's hard for me to believe, especially as a player, you're coming into our house, coming into storied Mikey Stadium, and I don't know. There's part of me that says I'm going to put this on the coaches. Being ready for the game, striking that balance between emotionally high, emotionally low, finding that sweet spot. They just seem flat. And the really uncharacteristic 2 turnovers in the first half, the opening possession, the closing possession, the second half, both of which were looking like classic Army grinded out kind of sustained drives for a touchdown, and they turned them over. There were just so many elements of this, irrespective of where we think the talent is and the team chemistry. That were just uncharacteristic, of this year thus far.
Well, Seth and I can speak on this. Coach Monken, the first thing that he said in his press conference, and you can watch the YouTube on our YouTube channel, his press conference, his full press conference. He took the blame for this game. He took the game for the loss, about getting them ready to play, about the way that he said. Now, how many coaches say we wasted the first half? But that's honest. They completely wasted the first 30 minutes of this game. I mean, just with the 2 turnovers, just with, just not getting it done on defense, that hurry up offense by Georgia State, they couldn't slow down. The runs were gashing, when they did throw the ball, they were getting the yardage. When the quarterback wanted to run and pick up a first down or a touchdown, he got it. So, I mean, Coach did first things he said in his press conference was that he points the blame right at himself.
Yeah, I think that's very I think that's just the kind of leader Coach Monken is. But if we execute perfectly and we make all the tackles, and just as a player, I just never believed in the whole, it's the coach's fault we lost. Okay, it just, we have turnovers. That's not the coach didn't have turnovers. Okay, we don't get it on 4th and inches. That's a call. We can say everything we want about the call about that 4th and inches on the goal line, but it goes back to Steve's point, man. How bad do you effing want it? It's 17-14. How bad do you want 6 inches? O-line, quarterback, fullback. That's what it goes down to. And I obviously respect the heck out of Coach Monken. I mean, he is the kind of guy that, you just want to follow and you love to be at the head of the table. But, I think the players know, we didn't execute perfectly. And, maybe some of that goes on the coaches for prepping them for the game. But at the end of the day, right, coaches facilitate wins and they facilitate losses, but they don't cause them. Okay, this is on the players. And this is gonna be a long week, man. We got Wake Forest. Like, this is gonna be a long week.
Oh yeah, and one thing I'll throw out, one of those. I mean, there were certain elements of this again that were just uncharacteristic, and probably the top of the list is Cade Ballard. I mean, he's been money throwing the ball, especially from an accuracy standpoint. Now, granted, in this game, he had to throw a couple balls where it was clear passing situations, which our probability of success goes way down. But he was 1 for 7. And that one in the end zone, back in the left corner of the end zone, man wide open, and that doesn't happen. Well, that was, again, very uncharacteristic. So it may be just that perfect storm of a lot of different factors. But man, this, I don't know about y'all, but this one hurt. This one hurt.
Steve, real quick point about the passing, right? When you have a bye week and the game before you throw one pass, right? You're not taking many game reps throwing the ball, right? I mean, you're not doing much in the last 2 weeks, like in the game situation, throwing the ball in. They called the one that he threw in the end zone was a first down pass, right? Was a first down pass. So then we have to get behind the chains in that one.
Yeah, never.
The one that he threw on the sidelines for a 10-yard out that was incomplete was a first down pass. They were thrown on first down. They were off schedule on those plays. And then the play after the miss in the end zone was the fumbled pitch, right? I mean, was the bad pitch to Robinson, right? So maybe there's something in the back there. Hey, I missed that play. Yeah, I have to move on to the next play. That's what they're told. And then the pitch, they're not really in sync on that pitch. That's a huge play because if you get points before the half there, right, whether it's a field goal, a touchdown, or anything, you came out firing on all cylinders in the second half. It may have been a tie game, or Army may have been ahead. I know it's a what-if game and stuff like that, but you had to get points at the end of that first half, and to come up empty, that certainly hurt.
Yeah, no doubt.
Go
for it, Steve.
Sal, what were the stats for quarterback and fullback? How many yards?
Oh, like running the ball?
Yeah.
Well, Tyler had over 100 yards rushing, and I think Ballard probably had like 80 yards rushing, and they rushed for
354.
Yeah, so they probably quarterbacks probably had half of their yards, I'm guessing. Right, Seth? I bet you the quarterbacks
had about half their yards, yes.
And you know what it was, too, today? Buchanan, Riley, Hayden Reed, Markel Johnson. It was like a four-headed fullback system today that probably counted for you know what? Let me just get this out of the way. Slot backs today. No, non-factor. And I've said this point a bunch of times. Ijon Marshall, right? He gets the ball in his hands, good things happen. One pitch play, 15 yards.
Yep. That
is it today. You're not throwing the slot backs the ball today. You're targeting, for the most part, Alston all day. You're not. I know most of the time it's slot backs down the seam, right? Pretty much, right? That's the pass play to slot backs. But Ijon Marshall gets one carry, and Tyrell Robinson, I don't think he was a factor today. Was he a factor today? I don't think he was a factor today.
No, he wasn't.
No, so that's not the triple option. That's more of a double. And that's not a good recipe really for Army most of the time. So
if I could throw my 2 cents in, I mean, I'm at the game sitting there with Sal. I thought today what we saw was three different things going on. The first half, I believe, was on the players. They didn't execute. They drove the ball. Give credit to Georgia State. They went with no huddle offense. Army looked a little bit out of sorts. They did fine, but our guys, they were doing pretty well until they fumbled the ball away. They had that open touchdown. With a bad pass. So I don't put that on the coaches. I know that, Monken put it on himself. I don't put that on him. They go into the locker room down 17-0. They come back out a different team. Sal and I were talking about. They dominated the third quarter and the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. Dominated. I give that credit to the coaches. Monken and his team. They motivated these guys. I don't know what they said. The players may have woken up, and we saw it. Then, after we did not score, and I don't agree with what they did those last three plays. They basically ran the same play three times with different people, but the same play right up the middle didn't work. Okay, then I think the coaches, and I think Monken agreed with this, and he said it, I think, they panicked. I think when they got the ball back, and then we made them punt, and we got the ball back at the 50-yard line, give or take. They panicked. They were doing things that they don't think they thought they were running out of time. Monken even said this, and I think the coaches, at the very end, didn't give the Army guys a chance to win the game. Not saying they would have won the game, because a lot has to happen. There's another team on the field trying to stop them. So we saw the players not perform the first half. I don't put that on the coaches at all, because the plays were working. They were just fumbling the ball close to the end zone. We should have come out with a couple of scores, whether field goals or touchdowns. I don't know. Okay. Second was a different team. We were winning that game. There was no doubt in my mind that Army was going to win that game after the second touchdown, down 17-14. And then what happened? They got down to the 6-yard line. Tyler comes out. They put Ballard in. It obviously screwed up the offense a little bit. They tried to play up the middle 3 times. Didn't work any of those 3 times. And they gave the ball back. And then when the Army got the ball back, they panicked, and that was the end of the game.
Yeah, and speaking of the end of the game, those last 2 touchdowns by Georgia State, I will never say an Army team gives up, but there was just a sense that they had throttled back, that they were already in the locker room. And, to give up those last 14 points that late in the game on big plays, and the defense, I think you've got 3 players. I mean, Leo Lowen, 12 total tackles, a sack, 2 tackles for a loss.
All over the place. That dude's getting crushed by guards on every other play, because up front they're not fitting right. I don't know, whatever it is. He's playing his tail off.
Yeah, and Marquell is Marquell. He's always going to be in the mix.
Yeah,
given 110%. And Bonsu had a decent game. He had a tackle for loss. But beyond those 3, the impact tapers off really quickly, and that's man, we're missing some of those key guys from last year. Cockrell, gosh.
They're not coming back, Steve. They're not coming back. So
I know.
4 games. It's 4 games into the season, man. You got to figure it out. And, a good point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I wanted to talk real quick about this. And Brendan, I know we talked about this before. I get you. So the quarterbacks, right? The second series of the game, I'm like, okay, Ballard needs to be in the game. And then he's not. Then Ballard's in the game and Tyre's not, and they move down the field. Then I'm thinking, okay, Ballard's going to be the guy that starts the second half, right? Tyre comes in and does a great job. Does a great job of driving and just running base plays, right? And does a great job. I don't know. Sometimes I have in my head, like, it's like the opposite effect, right? Where I think, okay, it's Ballard's time, but maybe it's Tyre's doing, I don't know. What did you think about the quarterback play today and just the way they were used, so to speak?
I mean, honestly, I didn't have a huge problem with the rotations today, but I mean, it drives me crazy when they pass on 1st and 10. It just does.
It's not a play action. Were they play actions? Maybe they were. Maybe they were. They probably were, I guess. I don't know.
And I know, I'm totally in favor of trying to find an edge through analytics. When they first, I think it was between 16 and 17 when they first went out to. They hired somebody who gave them a bunch of numbers, and the numbers actually told them to run more because it was more effective. I'm totally with that, but at the same time, like as a play caller, I think you just there's the analytics part, and then there's what can my guys that I have today give me, and having a feel for that. And I just feel like there's not enough of that sometimes, and there's an over-reliance on what the numbers say.
So, I agree with you.
That's
totally.
all I really have to say about that.
I think analytics work great when the players perform it as the analytics are supposed to happen. You can say the same thing about baseball. You get a guy up there and, he's going to hit the ball, someplace, whatever, and he doesn't do it. That's the way it works. Army guys are smaller. They tend to be slower. Sometimes the analytics don't go with the talent. And, hopefully the coaching staff realizes that. I'm not sure they do. I hope they do.
Well, I mean, the analytics are driven from what they've been able to produce. So I think it's right. It's what we call in the military the art and the science, right? So you have the science of what doctrine tells you to do, right? This is how you handle certain situations when you're being, when you're attacking or whether you're on defense. And then you have the art of it of what have my guys done the last 24 hours? What do we have to do after this, right? There's all these other things where commanders, leaders have to make these decisions that, might not be to the science of it, but kind of the combination of the both. And I think Brandon made a really good point, or Seth, about, what can they give me today, right? What are they giving me today? And, I don't know if it's an over-reliance on analytics, but, it surprised me that we came out so flat for an entire half. I was not that surprised at the end of the first quarter. I was like, all right, we gotta play a Division I team again. All right, let's go. Now we're usually it's after you get punched in the face one time and you're like, all right, shit, I gotta get after it. But just very surprised it took an entire half.
Yeah. I tell you, if I could throw out a question, sincere question, instead of where's Waldo, where's Andre Carter? I mean, was last year he came in under the radar? They didn't scheme for him. They're scheming for him now. Were it the other players that were in the mix that allowed him to do what he did last year, and that's not happened? What the heck?
I haven't seen the guy this year.
I think it's very simple, and the defense was much more talented last year with a lot of players you had to scheme for. It just was, and I think teams are like, oh God, this guy's Buckus, or this guy's a draft pick, right? We got to scheme for this guy, and they might be scheming for him, and nobody's stepping up and making the plays that Andre used to make last year. So I think I think that's what it is, Steve. I really do. I watched Andre today. It was like the first time I ever really just, usually I just I watched the middle linebackers. I watched the whole flow of the defense when I'm watching the defense. And I watched Andre today. And I mean, teams are not, they're saying this year, we're not going to let Andre Carter beat us. Yeah. We're not going to allow on 2nd and 7 to end up at 3rd and 12 by not, sliding to his side, or double teaming him or chipping him with the back. I mean, that guy is getting blocked by everybody. He is. And he's doing his best. I brought the play where I just thought it was very strange that quarterback could just outrun him the way he did. Because I just felt like Andre had, he's so long and he's so explosive. That's really, we need somebody to, I don't think we can just run stunts nonstop with Carter, looping around the tackle or the tackle looping around him. And I don't think that's the answer. I think The answer is, using that to our favor and somebody stepping up and making plays while Andre Carter's getting double team chipped. And that's just my opinion. Go ahead, Brandon. What do you got?
I actually think it's everything. It's the guys around him are not as talented as they were last year. It's people have more of an awareness of him. They're scheming more for him, and he's been injured. He basically, from what I've heard, he was largely
out. That's a really good point. I forget about that. That's a good point.
So so Steve K, you asked is it this? Is it this? It's everything.
See all of the above. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve Anderson, let me ask you a question. They usually rush him from the edge, right? If you line him up straight over the center, does that change anything at all? Get rid of that nose tackle. Does that change anything? Is that a different look? What do you think about that? I don't know.
Well, when you come off the edge, right, you have, right, you have your moves, right? You have the thing he practices nonstop. Now when you put him right in the center, right, and I'll tell you what, one of the best players at this was, and I just know this because he was my teammate, right, is Josh McNary, where guys could not, he would literally chop linemen's arms with two hands and try to break their forearms with how hard he would chop, right? And then you would use that momentum, right, to chop, and as you chop, you got skinny, right, and you would just keep going. And Josh was great. Like a lot of my blitzes were up the gut, right? I was middle linebacker. I was an A-gap blitzer. I knew how to move my body and blitz to where I could get the center out of my way or get the guard out of the way, depending on how they came off the block. But that was my blitz. I knew that because that's all I practiced.
Yeah.
Now if they wanted to move Carter around a little more, he's an athlete. I mean, shit, he's super physically gifted and he's intelligent. I'm sure it would just take, reps and reps at practice, and then after practice, continue and get after, and he could do it. But it's just very different, especially, the center is usually, the center is usually stout, right? He's a 6 foot, 270, 280 guy that doesn't move very much, but he's got that punch. So
yeah, just an idea, just a thought.
Yeah, I think Carter. I think I think Brandon's right on it, man. I keep forgetting Carter's been battling that injury, or that I don't even want to call it an injury because he looks good out there. It just looks like he is a little overwhelmed with what they threw. I literally watched the play today. Where they slid to his side. He got around a guy, and the back still chipped him before he could get to the quarterback. So, when I saw that play today, I was like, all right, that's it. Carter is just they are just saying somebody else sack our quarterback because it's not going to be this guy.
Well, that's on the coaching, though. See, if they're double teaming him and they're scheming against him, the coaches have to do something to make
I get it, Seth. I get you say the coaching, but somebody's got to make the play.
Well,
they got to have someone make the play.
Yeah, because if they're doubling Carter, then that's somebody else. It's like defending the option. It's if you're not disciplined, if you're not covering your guy, somebody's free. It goes both ways. Yeah. And if they're doubling Carter, then who's got the open lane?
Into it, we're 4 games into it. We think the coaches would sit there and say, okay, they're doubling this guy. We got to do something else, or we got to move Carter around. We got to do something to upset the offensive strategies.
Hey, Seth, I remember talking to you in the press box about this. It was really early in the game, the first drive, right? It's a 3rd and change, probably 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. And Steve, they dropped Andre Carter back into coverage in rush 3. What? I mean, why is he on the field? Why is he on the field?
We just talked about it, right? And Seth, you just mentioned it. Why are we dropping Andre Carter when he's our best pass rusher, right? It's because we know the whole line's going to slide to him. He's not going to get to the quarterback anyway, okay? He hasn't got to the quarterback in 4 games. All right, he's gotten maybe what's he at now?
Well, no, he got one game he had sacks.
But that's what I'm saying is in 4 games, it hasn't been a recipe for success. So they were using that to our advantage there. Look, I don't like seeing Andre Carter in pass coverage at all. Okay, he's a physical specimen that can rush the passer. Like that's his gift. But that was the coaches trying to use that. Right, we knew they were going to slide to him. The line did it. The line went. They went to Carter. Carter left. And then they're like, oh, well, we better go back this way, right? And nobody got home. Not one of those guys got home when they had that split second. That line slides immediately, right? And that guy has a split second to make a move when he's one-on-one, and me versus you, I'm better than you. And we don't have that guy opposite or in the center that could make it happen. And look, I was dying when I saw Andre Carter in pass coverage. I was like, oh my God, what do we do?
What happened? The quarterback scrambled for a first down. He scrambled for a first down.
Yeah, I mean, with a quarterback like that, you got
it would have been 4th down. I would say a 3rd or 4th down. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, that guy had some ability. I mean, I am a big believer as long as you can defend having a QB spy. Like you drop, you just have. I love the QB spy because I did it a lot as a middle linebacker for Ellerson. And I just loved it. Now, there's plenty of times where there was quarterbacks more athletic than me, and I could spy all day long. It wasn't going to help, all right? So you got to have the right guy spying. But there was plenty of times where it just put me in the right position. And, yeah, look, I watch the defense more intensely. I watch the offense as a fan, and I watch the defense as, like, a guy that, like, I know what I'm supposed to see here for the most part as far as, like, alignment, assignment, and stuff like that. I don't know exactly what all their keys are, but I understand defense a lot more. So it makes sense to me that if Carter's not getting home, we're using him as, almost not a decoy, but we're going to try to use him in different capacities in order to try to confuse that offensive line. And I mean, they did what we wanted to do. We just couldn't get anybody home. And it's, we gotta figure it out because they're gonna keep scheming for it.
Yeah.
Guys, I got to sign off, but I wanted to say one more thing, or 2 more things. One, Connecticut won today against Fresno State. Not a great Fresno State team, but Connecticut won. I thought that was interesting. I watched the end of the game as I was writing the story. 2, we have Wake Forest this week. I hope the coaches do something that we're talking about, the stuff that we just talked about. I hope these guys realize that they got to come up with some offensive and defensive changes if they expect to be in the game with Wake Forest. That's my view, because if they do the same old, Wake Forest is watching the films. They know what to do. That's the issue. You have 4 games under our belt. That's 4 games worth of films that these teams are watching down the road. So I just hope that Monken and his team are putting together, are thinking right now, today, tomorrow, next couple of days, about what they're going to do against a very, very good Wake Forest team, an explosive offensive team and a better defensive team than last year.
Yeah, Wake beat Florida State today. So
by
their
10.
only loss is a double overtime to Clemson, right? So
Yeah.
Everybody check out Seth's story on BlackKnightNation.com. This game story. We'll see you soon, Seth.
Bye-bye.
Before we wrap this this recap up, I want to talk about the fake punt. I want to talk about what happened in the end there. I mean, well, first the 3rd down play. Right now, it's 3rd and 10, I guess, and it's a passing down, right? And I hear the announcer saying, it's Army. They don't necessarily have to pass on 3rd and 10. They can run the football. And I'm not sure what that play was. I mean, was it a rollout and was it an option for Tyre to run or pass? I'm not sure. Honestly, I was in the elevator going down to the stadium when that happened, so I didn't see the play live. I watched it once on TV. Maybe you guys can give me the take on that. And then, that fake punt on 4th and 11. And Coach Monken said that's kind of on him, right? Because I guess, Steve, maybe you can talk about this. When the defense stays on the field, I guess Army players have a read or tell maybe to say if the defense is still on the field, we're going to run this fake punt. But a fake punt on 4th and 11 when the game's still in doubt and you can punt the ball down and try to pin Georgia State. And I love Austin Hill. I love Austin Hill's effort on the field, right? Austin Hill went down a couple times, possibly the cramps during the game, right? I mean, Austin Hill gave it every ounce of effort he had to try to pick up those 11 yards, right? But to call that play then, and Coach Munkin said, well, maybe I should have kept the offense on the field and passed. Yeah, you probably should have, right? I mean, what's maybe your guys' take on the end there? Because it didn't. Like I said, this didn't go well there, and
I don't think there's anybody that was not surprised at a fake punt call there. Just because it just for other than the cat, like we're all just casual. I mean, we're not casual. We're all diehard Army football, love watching it, right? But you're right, Sal. There is probably something that happened earlier in the game or something they planned for that if they come out in this alignment.
They practiced it, so.
Right. If they come out in this alignment and you show me this, right? And we've got 3 weeks of film, or if we had 4 weeks of film on them, right? Right? Like, and if it's an automatic audible, right? Because there are some times where it's an automatic audible. Like I played punt team for 4 years. I played punt team, right? There's automatic audibles, and then there's audibles like for certain situations, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what kind of power he gives the punter / the up back
the shield or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, right. I don't know what kind of power he gives them. And I didn't see his reaction after the fake punt as far as like whether or not it was something that he knew was going on or didn't know was going on or what. And maybe you guys can help me on that one. But yeah, I mean, there are things under that. It just I agree with you, Sal. I just felt like the game was still very much manageable. I think our defense was playing very well up to that point where we had momentum. And then it just seemed like right after that, and I say this all the time, momentum is just as important as the right scheme. Because if all the momentum's on your side, right, you're going to be a hard team to beat. And that comes with home field advantage. That comes with big plays. That comes with especially right. One of the biggest momentum shifters, right, are special teams plays.
Yeah,
because the offense and defense are out there crushing nonstop, right? 10 plays or 5 plays or whatever, right? Special teams goes on for one play before the defense or offense are back out there, and that is why when special teams has a huge shift in momentum, you see it all the time. You see it in every single game at every single level. When special teams have a momentum shifting play, the offense or defense or whatever team comes on, it's always something positive that comes immediately thereafter. Also, I remember this stat when I played, okay? I remember the stat because I was on punt team. If you can pin your opponent within the 5-yard line, you have a 93% chance of coming away with points.
Wow.
93% chance that if you can stop them on that first time, you have a 93% chance of coming away with points, right? Yeah. If it's a 10-yard line, you have a 73% chance. And I just remember always thinking that is the weirdest stat. Who tracked this? Because
analytics, baby.
Right.
Horse upon.
But and anyway, back to your original question, Sal. There are automatic checks.
Yeah.
And I don't know how. I didn't know if Munkin, Coach Munkin saw it or knew that automatic check was going to happen, but very, very tough to watch not get the first down there. We get the first down there, we probably score, we probably win the game because of the momentum, right? Yeah. But to watch it play out the way it did, very, very hard.
Dude, I don't think analytics are telling you to run that play. But hey, let me make a quick point, right? We had a 24-yard punt or whatever, a 20-yard punt earlier in the game, right? So you don't have Zach Harding this year. If you have Zach Harding this year, no question in the world, you're punting in that situation, right? You're punting in that situation. You're pinning them down, and go ahead, Georgia State. Let's see what you can do. But you just don't. They don't have that punter this year. They don't have the punter that, who knows, they could have punted and it would have been a pinned punt. Would have been a punt. We don't know.
Sal, to quote you earlier, he's not coming back.
I'm just saying maybe they just don't have the I mean, I don't know, because that seems like punt in every analytics handbook that probably is out there, right? But it just wasn't there. Steve Cripe, what your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, and maybe to dovetail off of that, I think this game is a reminder, and I think Monken uses this storyline as a motivator. That it's rare that Army's going to take the field and be the most talented field out there, or most talented team out there. But he expects the best effort. He expects near flawless execution. And so, as we've gone through this and had this discussion, there's that, play here, the execution there, the muff punt, the bad pass here and there, the margin of talent and the difference between a victory and a loss is a very fine line. And I think we've been spoiled is probably a bit of hyperbole, but, we've gotten used to that high level of execution, and whether it's talent or coach prep or whatever, this is a game that's a reminder. It's a fine line out there, and because we could probably rattle off those half dozen different plays. Had they gone differently, man, we're hanging a W up there.
Yeah,
and yet, so I think no one else I'd rather have at the helm right now than Monken. Talk about, underdog, consummate underdog game going into Wake Forest, a very, very talented, capable, hey, we can show what we're made of. Let's turn it around in a week and at least give them a good game. If not, knock them back on their heels and come away with a W.
Yeah. Brendan, your thoughts, just I guess closing thoughts. We were in waiting for Coach to come to the press conference, and a couple guys were saying, looking at the schedule, and they're like, "Where are these wins coming from to get bowl eligible?" You're worried about bowl eligibility after 4 games, and a 1-3 start, and you see teams like Seth said, UConn and UMass and Troy and Louisiana Monroe and Colgate. You just put an X through Colgate, because even a win over Colgate doesn't count toward the bowl. Just put a big X there. It counts in the win column, but not in the bowl eligibility column. So, just maybe some thoughts about, if you want to talk about that punt, if you just thoughts about, where the team's at and where they can go.
Yeah, I mean, if you, I guess it was after the UTSA game, I said, I'm not pushing the panic button yet, but my finger's definitely on it. This is like, I mean, you said it. Like, I don't see how they go, 6-2 down the stretch, whatever it would take them to get to bowl eligibility. Yeah. But as you guys were just talking about, it is a fine line sometimes. It was a fine line with Villanova. I mean, they end up winning by a big margin, but that game was very much in the balance. And so I would just say, to try to remind people, I'm definitely not optimistic about this season going forward, but in terms of a game by game basis, the score doesn't necessarily tell you how competitive it was, because if they, I honestly, I didn't even think the fake punt was the worst call in the world, but as I said before, it's like, do you want to put the game in the hands of a guy who's come off twice already for dehydration? Is that the best decision to make with the players you have on the day? I don't know, but yeah, I don't really have much else to say in that regard.
Yeah, I don't know. Just things like, man, it was so much hope when the fourth quarter started at Mikey Stadium, and want to say one more thing. Of course, the forecast wasn't great today, right? It was supposed to rain. We were supposed to maybe get some stuff from Hurricane Ian. Didn't rain much at Mikey Stadium at all. 25,000 strong at Mikey Stadium, which, for Georgia State, I mean, you would hope that more people would show up, but the weather and everything like that. I sat on the south side, the reservoir side, for the last 5 minutes with a friend, and you got Georgia State fans making a hell of a lot of noise on that side. And you had UTSA fans, the same thing a couple weeks back. And it's just like, I don't know. I mean, I guess the game like this doesn't really it's not going to bring fans out to Mikey Stadium, more fans out to Mikey Stadium. But that home field advantage is, they don't have that home field advantage as much as they did in the past with the better teams. So, that's, we'll see. I don't know. That's just maybe a little off.
And to your point, week before last, we interviewed Coach Monken, and the question was asked, what can fans do to support? And his 2 words: show up. And I don't know what it is.
Ticket prices, parking.
Yeah, but it is. Mikey should have a true home field advantage. And for whatever factors are involved, that doesn't appear to be the case.
Go ahead. Sorry, Brendan, were you going to say
anything? Oh, yeah. I mean, this is definitely not a problem that's unique to Army. Like, college, attendance is down. Like, physical attendance is down pretty much across the board. Yeah. In college football. Like, I think I saw somebody last night saying, UCLA, it's a ghost town out there. And, that's still a pretty competitive program. So...
Yeah. Well, I get that's my final. I mean, big game coming up this week against Wake Forest. This was, when you looked at the schedule, this was going to be the best team that you faced all year long. So in last year's game, 70-55, that was crazy at Mikey Stadium. I don't know if Army has what we saw today. Army sort of hang with that from last year, but the defense has to. Steve, the defense has to play probably their best game of the season for Army to have a chance against Wake Forest on Saturday night.
Yeah, it's always funny, and I remember, when we played, we used to, we had a few game stretch where we were losing we lost 17-14, or we lost to Texas A&M one year 21-17. We lost to another team. It was basically where the defense, you started feeling like the defense it didn't start to feel, but the defense was getting frustrated that we were losing games that if our offense had showed up, we were going to win. And I just remember coach coming to us and being like, look, there's going to be a game where you're going to need them to show up. And, it was Coach Sadat. He came up and he's like, there's going to be a game you're going to need them to show up because you didn't show up, and they'll show up. They'll be there that day they show up. Yeah. And it was Kent State, my senior year.
Yeah,
we let Kent State score 28, 30-something points against us. Some bull crap. We also had a punt that game that cost us being the number 1 punt team for net punt in the nation that year. So, but the offense showed up, got us a W. So
they held 45, I think. So.
Yeah, and I just want if any players listen to this or the Army fans listen to this, know that stay together. All right, it's a very long season. I know we're 4 games into this now, but it's a long season, and we see it every weekend. Okay, there's upsets every weekend, so I'll end with just beat Wake Forest.
Yeah, appreciate everybody watching this. Replay, check out Black Knight Nation. Seth's game story is already up there. Check out Black Knight Nation YouTube. I already have the press conference videos from Coach Monken, Leo Lowen, Tyler, and Connor Bishop up on our Black Knight Nation YouTube page. The Instagram has some pregame videos that I took today. And, man, we hit 4,000 followers at Black Knight Nation Twitter today. So thanks for everybody following us, on our road to 5K there. And Steve, we're gonna have the last couple podcasts that we've done with guests have really been out of this world, like just back at deep dives into Army history, and hopefully we can get a few more on there, on soon for you guys.
Sal, if I may, I mean, I brought this up earlier. I mean, I always tell people, like, I'm not an old grad, I'm not a vet, I'm just a fat civilian who just happens to be very passionate about Army football. So I've been familiar with, quote unquote, the legend of Nate Sassaman, which is, Coach Young comes in, tries to run a pro style offense, doesn't work, changes to the wishbone in the offseason, and happens to find this kid at free safety. That is not untrue, but that is certainly not the entire truth. So if you are the least bit interested in kind of the history of Army football and the 84 season in particular, go check out those episodes with Nate Sassaman on Black Knight Nation. They're tremendous.
I mean, Steve, unbelievable, right? I mean, man, I wanted to do a week. I told him when we got off, Steve, I told him, you want to do a weekly spot? You want to do a weekly Nate Sassaman spot? I'm all for it. You can have your own podcast. We'll call it the Nate Sassaman podcast, because he's like, no, give me a call next year. He told me to give him a call next year, Steve. I'm like, oh, man. But hey, I don't know if I should go on the record this, but he's going to try to get Jim Young for us. He said he was going to try to get Jim Young for us. And, Jody Glore, who we had as our last guest, we're trying to take a deep dive into the history, maybe potentially a Gary Steele or a Raleigh Stitchway. I mean, those are really, we would like to get some current players on that just played too. Scott Flanick in the stands today. Scott Flanick was a long snapper for Army when they had the successful teams who played in the USFL for the Generals. Saw him today in the stands. We had him on, Steve, right, the long snapping podcast where he educated us on long snapping. Man, I was running down our guests that we've had this year to somebody at Army and pointed them to our YouTube channel. And, man, it just keeps on getting better. And we appreciate it. And we can't get it done without higher echelon Joe Ross, right? We can't get it done with them. And so, man, let's keep it going, and let's see what Army's made of next Saturday night in Winston-Salem. Let's see what they can do against the Demon Deacons. Guys, it's been a blast. Yeah. Steve Anderson, Brendan in Jersey, Steve Kripke, Seth Mendelson, and myself breaking down this 31-14 loss for Georgia State. It might be another late night podcast on next Saturday with Wake Forest, guys. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Beat 'em.
Thank you.